Ready to dive in? We're tackling Khaled Hosseini's A Thousand Splendid Suns. Today, a book that's just stayed with me. It's one thing to enjoy a story, but I think this deep dive will really unpack why it resonates so powerfully with so many readers. We're going to uncover the strength found in the toughest situations, the different ways motherhood plays out, and how women facing incredible hardship find connection.
It's amazing how Hosseini takes these huge, universal themes, love and loss, yearning for belonging, and makes them hit home through the lens of this specific culture, this country in turmoil. It's more than just a personal story, isn't it?
Exactly. It really makes you think. And speaking of the story, we start with Miriam. Right away, she just grabs your heart. She's living with her mother, Nana. Pretty simple life in a kolba, a small dwelling outside Herat. And even though it's just the two of them, you can feel this longing in Miriam to connect with her father, Jalil. He's this wealthy man who lives in the city.
And that longing for connection, it's so central to who she is, right? She's a Harami, an illegitimate child, and Hosseini doesn't let us forget how much that means in Afghan culture. We see it in the way Nana carries herself, all that bitterness. And the things she says to Miriam about men, how they'll always blame women. Like she's already preparing Miriam for a life of being misunderstood.
That's heartbreaking. That visit Miriam finally gets to have with Jalil in Herat. For a minute, you see her hopes soar, all those dreams of being with him finally belonging. But it all comes crashing down when Jalil's family rejects her, leaves her sleeping on the streets. Can you imagine? Talk about a brutal lesson for a young girl.
Absolutely. And that feeling of displacement, it only gets worse when she's forced into this marriage with Rashid, a much older shoemaker, and taken to Kabul. Ripped away from the only home she's ever known, married to a stranger, dropped into a city that's completely foreign. It's hard to imagine a situation with more loneliness and uncertainty.
It really is. It's like her whole life is just turned upside down overnight. Those early days in Kabul, she's so lost. The judgmental neighbors, getting lost in her own neighborhood, even losing a pregnancy. And all while trying to please this demanding husband.
And we can't forget what's happening around them, right? Afghanistan on the brink of major change, war always looming. Adds a whole other level to what Miriam's going through.
Like her inner world and the world around her are both in turmoil. And just when you think it can't get more intense, we meet Layla. Layla's childhood in Kabul is the complete opposite of Miriam's, full of love, dreams for the future. That contrast is stark.
It's Layla's thirst for knowledge that always gets me. You don't see that often in stories like this. And her father, Bobby, he encourages it, He wants her to get an education, which is so different from what we saw with Miriam. Bobby really believed that girls, educated girls, held the key to Afghanistan's future. And he makes sure Layla believes it too.
But that's where things take a turn, right? Layla's life, with school, friends, even a little romance with her neighbor Tariq. It all starts to change. As the war with the Soviets heats up, like this shadow just keeps creeping closer and closer.
And that shadow explodes into tragedy for Layla's family with the rocket attack. It's brutal. Not only does it mark the sudden end to Layla's childhood, but it really shows how war just doesn't discriminate. It tears families and lives apart without a second thought.
It's one of those moments in the book that just stays with you, And just like that, Layla's an orphan, she's injured, completely alone, and that's when fate, or maybe it's just irony, throws her into Miriam's life. Rashid taking Layla in. It's hard to believe it's just a coincidence. And creates such a weird dynamic between them, so much tension.
It's really clever how Hosseini does that. Rashid, he wants a younger wife and he sees Layla's vulnerability, but Layla, she's desperate. Kabul's falling apart and she needs safety, some kind of stability. She's being forced into a life she never would have chosen.
You can feel that friction, can't you, between them? It's like they're competing in this awful situation, but then, living under Rashid's thumb, something changes.
And it sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, really. Instead of becoming rivals, Miriam and Layla, they forge this amazing bond. They become each other's lifeline. Sharing the burden, comforting each other, it shows how resilient women can be, especially when they face hardship together.
It's one of the things I love most about the book. And through it all, you see how the situation in Afghanistan, especially once the Taliban takes over, strips away any little bit of freedom women had.
Yeah, Hosseini doesn't sugarcoat it. Life under the Taliban's version of Islamic law is stifling. Women can't leave the house without a man, they have to wear burqas, forget education or work. They're fighting just to survive, living with constant fear.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that level of control. And it makes the fact that Layla is pregnant with Tariq's child even more, powerful. Yeah, it's like this little bit of light in all that darkness. And she holds on to it fiercely, so she marries Rashid, makes her life even more tangled up with Miriam's.
And then Aziza is born. Layla's daughter, just adds a whole other layer, doesn't it, to their lives. But you really see the strength of a mother's love no matter what. Even Miriam, who's hesitant at first, she steps up to help raise Aziza. It really solidifies that bond between her and Layla.
It's the definition of chosen family. You get these little glimpses of hope, even with everything else going on. When Layla has her son, Zalmai, it's like there's a moment of, I don't know, normalcy, a family trying to exist.
Yeah.
But we know it can't last, especially with the Taliban tightening their grip on Kabul.
The way Hosseini describes life under their rule, it's chilling. Women have even less freedom. Executions are happening all the time. Even simple things, music, laughing, it's forbidden. It's more than oppression. It's like they're trying to erase a whole culture.
You really feel that weight, that constant fear. But it's in the middle of all that Layla does something incredible. She finds out Tariq's alive. And it just sparks this desperate need for something more than Rashid's tyranny.
And that spark, it fuels her plan to escape with Tariq, knowing it could cost them everything. It makes you think about the power of love, how strong the human spirit can be, even when everything's stacked against you.
It's pretty amazing. But like you said, freedom has a price. Miriam, she makes the ultimate sacrifice, takes the blame for Rashid's death to protect Layla and the children, and she pays for it with her own life.
It just breaks your heart, but it's the reality for so many women, especially in a patriarchal society. Men make the choices, and women's lives are defined by them.
It's a lot to process, but even in death, Miriam protects the people she loves. She gives them the chance at a life she could never have, and that's how Layla escapes. Starts this whole new chapter full of hope, but also this deep sadness.
And the story takes another turn. It's bittersweet, you know? Layla and Tariq, they reunite. Kabul will never be the same, but they're rebuilding after the Taliban. And Layla, she carries Miriam with her, a reminder of the sacrifices made and how strong people can be.
There's this moment near the end, it always sticks with me. Layla finds a box that Miriam left. A letter, some money, and Pinocchio. Remember how much they both love that story? It's like this final act of love for Miriam, even after she's gone.
It's about hope and forgiveness, isn't it? Miriam, reaching from beyond the grave to give Layla strength, connection, a way to heal.
Gives me chills.
Aw.
1,000 Splendid Suns is one of those books that you just don't forget. It makes you think about how strong people can be, how love and friendship can get you through anything.
Hosseini has this amazing ability to take you somewhere most people only see on the news. And he makes you care about these characters. You realize that even though their lives seem so different, we're all connected.
Something to think about, that's for sure. And it makes you wonder, what if Miriam and Layla had never met? Would things have been different? What if Layla had made a different choice when she found out Tariq was alive? It makes you think about fate, the choices we make, and how powerful hope can be. This book, it stays with you, and it reminds us how important it is to understand each other, especially in a world that feels so divided.